How do you live a life that is significant without striving, meaningful in the mundane, and overcomes in spite of obstacles? Welcome to The Conversation, the Significant Life podcast with Jen and Marcus Jones.
Well, hello. I think we are live here, and I am so excited about the conversation that we're having today. I'm so glad that you are listening in to the Significant Life podcast. I have a very special guest. Her name is Alex, and she just authored, in fact, I have it sitting right here. She just authored and released her first book, and I'm guessing, because Alex, how old are you?
I'm 21.
I mean, so the girl's just getting started. And it's called He Sees Perfection, Trusting That What God Sees Is All That Matters. And we're going to jump right into a great conversation, but I wanted to share what happened in my mom heart of a mom of teenagers when I saw your post fill my feed. And honestly, I just think it's a God thing. I know your mom. We are colleagues in business, in the health coach world. And then we have done some ministry stuff together, participated in women's events and things like that. But I don't totally know how your post popped in my feed. But it did. And I was like, wait, what? Because I have four kids. I have 3 daughters, and they are in a very critical time of their life, I feel. I mean, every season of our life matters. All parts of our story count. But they are 13, 17, and 19. And when I saw a 21-year-old writing a book that would speak to their hearts in a way that, and in a season that they need other girls, young women to come alongside and begin to share that kind of truth with them in a way that, might get sometimes an eye roll from mom, or just not as, maybe not dismissed completely, but just so impactful when it comes from someone just a stage ahead of them. I was like, I got to share this. I got to buy the book. And Alex, can we do some stuff together? Because the next generation needs your voice. So why don't you, before we dive in, just share a little bit about yourself? And yeah, I know you live here in SoCal, but what else? Talk to us.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. It was so cool just seeing how we're doing different things in life, but how it could connect, and just in ministry, bringing those different realms of different seasons, different experiences, but seeing how God can use all of our stories and make them connect, and we're just all on fire to get his name more known. So a little bit more about me. I'm 21. I just graduated college. I am in a very new, fresh phase of my life where I'm like, holy cow, I don't know what to do. I do know what to do, but there's a lot of steps getting to what I want to do, I guess. And yeah, so when I was 15, I was just going through the typical teenage girl things. I was dealing with friendship drama, as that's just a normal girl thing. I was honestly, I think when I was in 8th grade is when I first got Instagram. And that was just a very interesting season where I honestly just started comparing myself a ton. I was looking at social media and seeing different girls with different bodies and going, oh my gosh, I look nothing like that. And it really set me down this spiral. And then in the midst of that, excuse me, I was in the middle of, having a conversation in a potential relationship with a guy, and I was comparing myself to other girls around me, like, oh my gosh, he's not gonna like me, oh my gosh, all of this. So I was just completely overwhelmed, and all of these different things were going on. I was in volleyball, I was everything, AP classes, and one day I had had enough. I came home to my room. I was not really a writer. I never would have called myself a writer. I guess I enjoyed it in school, but I just started typing, and it's funny because it was in my sophomore year of high school, and I was learning about Google Drive in my class. And so I'm like, I feel like it was probably because I was learning about Google Drive, but I also would like to say that God led me to do that. I think it was a mix. And I just started typing on Google Drive and I was like, oh, I feel kind of cool. I'd learned all about this, but I was like, I need to let this out, whatever this is. I'm like, ugh, it feels yucky. There's a lot on my mind. So I did, and I wrote it, and it was interesting because the way I wrote it was as if I was teaching someone to get through what I was going through of the overwhelm of the boy drama, the girl drama, the identity issues and comparison and all of this. And I finished writing it, whatever it was, maybe a couple pages. And I actually think it was the introduction of my book is what I wrote that first day. And we've had many edits back and forth, but that's pretty much the introduction of my book. And yeah, I wrote it out and I read it to my mom and she started crying and she's emotional. She's a mom. She cries about lots of things, but she was very much like, Alex, this is not just for you. Like, this isn't meant for you. This is meant for more people. Like, this can help someone. And so I was like, what? Like, I'm 15, you know? And she was like, Alex, like, if you can have impact on someone's life, wouldn't it be worth it? Like, what if you just make it a book? And I was like, okay, maybe. Like, and I thought about it. I don't think I processed the huge dream, but I'd say a couple months up to a year later, I had a very clear vision from God of me speaking on a stage, and I saw myself with a microphone in my hand, and there was a table and there was a water bottle, and then I was looking out into the audience. You know, in concerts when everyone has their lights and it's like a flashlight, I saw this huge, like massive stadium, whatever it was, this big room with lights everywhere of people like holding their lights up, and I was the one speaking on that stage, and I was like, what? Like, I was 15 or 16, like, what is that? But then again and again I got this confirmation from God, like, that's you, that's what I'm gonna do in you. And so ever since then I'm like faithfully fighting God in this process of, okay, I'm 15, or okay, I'm 21, like, why me? Why'd you choose me? What about me do you want to use? And why did you call me this at such a young age? Like, who does that? You know, so many people are like, you're 21 and you published a book. And I'm like, yeah, I did. And everyone's like, you're amazing. And I'm like, it's not me, it's God. Like, if God did not give me that clarity and that vision, I wouldn't have done it. This would be the last thing on my list, you know? And I can get more into it, but when I was first graduating high school at 17, I got hired fresh out of high school to work and be the girls director for my high school ministry at church. And I worked there for 2 years, and I really got to see what teenage girls were going through. And that was a huge godsend. And that gave me passion for ministry and being like, oh, I understand why you called me to this. Like, this fuels my heart.
I can resonate with a lot of what you're saying, even as an adult. I think sometimes we end up in places that we didn't expect. I like to think of following God and pursuing his purposes for our life sometimes as like bowling with the gutters up. It's like there is a target. There's desires of our heart. There's things that we see. I mean, wow, you got a very clear vision and even some direction from the Lord. But it's this. So there's pins out there, a target, and then it's like, okay, just roll the ball, and it sort of pings back and forth. And sometimes you end up doing things and accomplishing things and pursuing things that you like only would do because of the leadership and the direction of the Holy Spirit in our lives. And I think it's so much of even the becoming process. And you, from 15 to 21, from when you first opened Google Drive to actually publishing a book, have been like, even that season of life is such a profound time of becoming. I mean, you legit like physically become a young woman, and then you really became a woman of faith, and you really exercised your faith from someone who, I think we can all resonate with the 16-year-old self that is, you mentioned girl drama. Sadly, I think even in middle age, sometimes there's still girl drama. Right. There's relationship drama. Mm-hmm. And so I think we can all kind of resonate with the 16-year-old self. And then just the rejection, doubt, betrayal. I mean, that is just the theme sometimes in high school and in college. And it is often the same sorts of feelings that we experience as adults. And I just think it's so profound that you were able to flip the script. And your book is He Sees Perfection. And it's really flipping the script on what we so often see in ourselves. And there's this part it's at the beginning. It's in like the first Patience, Faith, and Growth with God chapter. Mm-hmm. But you just talk about some of your negative beliefs of yourself. You were shy growing up as a young girl, and didn't necessarily, even there were some new adventures that your parents had taken on. And obviously as a kid, you're joining them in those new adventures. There was like a new church campus, and your parents were being a part of leading all of that. And it thrust you and your brother into having to sort of be brave and like, okay. And like welcome people into your space. And you didn't choose that, but it was chosen, and that was uncomfortable for you. It was, you kind of describe it being a little bit uncomfortable. And you just said, I always wanted to overcome, you said this, unconsciously and consistently, I would tell myself that no one would want to talk to me. I wouldn't fit in with anyone, or I wasn't fill in the blank enough to be there. I always wanted to overcome those beliefs because I knew they were lies, but at the time, I didn't even know how to start. Yeah. And you said, I wondered why I couldn't let go and join them. I wanted and prayed I would feel as if I belonged one day. I would love for you to just share a little bit on how you did, or how you are overcoming that sense of not belonging. I think it's an innate need that we all have to belong. I don't think it ever ends, and we seek belonging. And I definitely know it's massive in your season of life. It continues in my season of life, and you can overcome and you can find connection. But I would love to hear some of your thoughts on belonging and what you did to overcome in this area of your life.
Yeah, I'd love to share. I think at the age that I was when this all began, I didn't know how to do it on my own. And luckily my parents, in their business, they were getting so much like poured into them, so much knowledge to overcome things and given tools. And so my mom really specifically as a girl was able to walk me through those similar things, like, hey, I went through this at your age. And it was really interesting whenever, I went through something, she was like, oh my gosh, I didn't go through this for me. I went through it for you. Like, because I can help you now. And I was like, whoa. And then for me now, writing this book, I'm like, wow, I didn't go through this for me. I'm going through this for the girls that are going to read this book or follow daughter ministries and whatever God leads. And so, and I lead a small group at my church. And so I'm like, I'm doing it for those girls that I love as if they're my own girls, And it's cool to see how if you have someone that believes you and someone that is willing to invite you in. I had this teacher in 5th grade. Her name is Miss Swinnette. I wrote about her at the beginning, and she believed in me. And I think overcoming those feelings, dealing with the I don't belong, takes people believing in you and showing you that you are worthy, that you are seen. Because you could walk into a room, you could walk into church, but if someone doesn't come up and talk to you, you're like, no one sees me. And that's such a lie, right? Like you can be seen, like you are a human, they see you. But I talked to this one amazing mentor, and she said, whenever you have those feelings of like, I don't feel seen, no one wants to be my friend, she said, ask yourself this: is that the absolute truth, or does that just feel like the truth? And I apply that to every area of my life. Is it the absolute truth that no one on earth wants to be my friend? No, it just feels like the truth because I'm in an uncomfortable situation with people that don't know me yet. But I have the power to step out in faith and understanding that the God who created me sees me and he sees perfection. That's where that title came from. I'm like, how do you see anything in me? And he's like, it's not about what you see, it's about what I see, you know? And so when it comes to that topic of belonging, I think it's understanding first who you belong to. And then that allows you to walk in that confidence of, I'm a daughter of God. So
Yes.
I can walk in a room and introduce myself because I am a daughter of the King of the universe, you know?
Yeah,
Like,
yes.
and then that's when you think about that and you take a step back, you're like, oh, I'm fine, you know? And it's not an easy thing to walk into uncomfortable situations. Or I'll use this for example. I graduated, I think it was 2 weeks ago now on a Friday. And in college, I didn't go out of my way to make friendships that often, and that's something that I wish I did more. I was also in college, most of it was COVID, and a lot of my classes were online, so it was just a little bit weird and off. And then we were in masks, and it was just this whole thing. So I give myself grace, but I do wish that I had some more some more conversations and friendships with people on my campus. And I made a couple great friends, but at the same time, I'm like, I wish I stepped out of my comfort zone a little more. And um, for my graduation, I knew a few people, but they were in different groups than I was for like where we're graduating. And I walked in and I was like, I'm gonna make my own experience. I'm gonna meet someone. I'm gonna find the girl that's shy and, standing alone, or a girl that looks like she doesn't have anyone with her, because that's who I was for so many years. And I'm like, I'm gonna stand with her because right now I feel shy, I feel alone, and I feel awkward. So I walked up to a few girls that didn't seem to have anyone with them, and I was like, hi, I don't have any friends here. Can I sit with you? And I took a step back and I was like, what did I just do? That is not Alex. It was funny. And then I ended up posting this reel the day of, like, saying that I graduated. And I recorded myself when we were all like moving the tassel over. I saw everyone around me and they were recording. And I was like, why are they recording? And I realized, oh, this is a big moment. Like, I'm about to move my tassel over that I graduated. And so I was like, I'm going to record myself. And I don't like being in front of the camera necessarily, but I flipped my camera over, recorded my face, and I was like, I had the biggest smile. I was like, yeah, I graduated, like celebrating myself and celebrating the fact that I did step out of my comfort zone. And even though college experience wasn't easy and there was COVID and there was all of this, I'm a daughter of God and I got through it,
Yes.
And I was proud of myself. And so I think that it's about believing in yourself, believing in who you really are at the core. God, you're God's daughter. Like, you are his. And then understanding, okay, how can I walk with that as like what I'm boasting about? Like, I'm his daughter, and walk in authority because of what he called you. Then you can walk into those situations. At the beginning, it's going to be weird. It's going to be awkward. But for me, I always tried to find the person that looked alone because that's who I was for so many years. And I don't want anyone to feel that. And that's my intention of, like, when I was girls director at my church, anytime a girl walked in the room, I'd say hi. But especially the girls that walked in alone, I was like, can I sit with you? Can we talk? Tell me about yourself. And I was like, that it transformed my life being seen by someone, especially someone like a little bit older than me. And it really built up that courage, that faith, that belief in myself. So Yeah.
Man, that is so good. It's such, I mean, it's biblical advice. It sounds like Jesus. It's what Jesus did. He walked slowly through the crowds and saw the people that no one else was really paying attention to, or they were paying attention to for judgmental reasons. Either way, like he actually saw beyond what everyone else was seeing and what all the other circumstances, to see the heart of the human and connect with them so they could be transformed, be saved, be healed. And so it's like you are living out the heart of God because you received the heart of God in your own life. And now you're paying that forward, so to speak. And I mean, as I'm listening to you, I want every woman, I want definitely these girls in the next generation to hear what you're saying, because at face value, it is, so I'm listening and I'm like, she felt that way because you just authored a book. Like you just wrote a book. It's a very big deal. And at 21, a very big deal. I mean, there is grown women who have been saying they're going to write a book and they still haven't written a book. Right. And so it's like, that is such an accomplishment. And you just graduated from college. You at 21. I mean, these days it's taking people much longer too. So, and then, at face value, physically speaking, you're gorgeous. You're just a beautiful young woman. And so I can imagine to hear that you have experienced feelings of loneliness or uninvited or what am I going to do with my life? Insignificance is probably pretty, I find it hope-filled. Yeah. Because what I just heard you say, the solution is not to pull yourself up by your bootstraps and just suck it up and keep going. Yeah. It's also not just confidence, like put it on, and it's not pretending. Yeah. It's not this fake it till you make it. It is actually receiving your rightful place as a daughter of God and owning your worth. And your worth really is connected to who you are because of who you belong to. And that is so powerful. And if every young woman could get a grasp on that, I just can't imagine what the world would be like, because perhaps we would then all go into rooms walking worthy. There's a passage of scripture that talks about walking worthy of the calling that you have received. And if we all, like, even when I just said the word worthy, I pull my posture up, right? Yeah. If we would just stand taller, our head a little bit higher because of the call that God has on our life, because we're loved and he sees us and he designed us and he created us. Imagine walking into rooms and finding those who don't feel that, so that they can, or and seeing others the way that God sees us. He sees perfection. It's so powerful. Okay, so I have like two burning questions. One of them is, you mentioned your mom and how, your mom did definitely encourage you along the journey when she saw the things that you were writing, and you shared your heart with her a bit. And I think it's beautiful. I have a great relationship with my girls, but like I said at the beginning, even sometimes when I say it, they're like, really, Mom? Or, okay, Mom. I've tried to lecture less and listen more.
Yep.
Yeah. So, I mean, I definitely, because I know that it's important for them to start connecting with girls your age, actually, in the next stage of life. But could you just share something, like one practical, but yet, I'm sure it will be, one thing that us moms who are raising young women could do that would be helpful, that helped you along the way, or that you see could be helpful. Because I think that anyone who's listening to this, who's raising a daughter, is like, I want to repeat whatever her mom did. So I'm not asking you to necessarily say what your mom did, but what were you able to receive from your mom? What were
Right.
the things that you could receive from your mom? Could you share that with us?
Yeah, absolutely. I think my mom, and my mom was totally immersed in personal growth and development for so long. And so for me, that was ingrained in me, like always. I was always like, let's dream bigger and think more because that's what she represented to me. But I also recognize that maybe not every girl is going to have that relationship with their mom or a mom that is so immersed in that. You know what I mean? And so I think what I learned specifically, obviously, I'm not a mom, but leading a lot of girls in ministry, what I learned is the best thing that my mom has applied in our relationship as well is asking the question, waiting for that invitation. So, with any of my small group girls, I always think, okay, I'm not going to speak into their lives until I have a relationship with them, you know? And in respecting that, they're going to open up more if they trust me and if I open up too. And having my mom share stories with me, like, Alex, I went through this in high school. This happened to me with a guy, or this happened to me with friends. I was so uncomfortable walking into this group of friends, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, what? You? Like, my mom? Really? And
Mm,
so having that relatability, building the relationship of saying, I'm not just this high and mighty woman that knows everything. I'm growing and learning with you, but let me invite you into my growth and into my story. I think it's that invitation.
mm,
And then going back to what I say to my small group girls all the time, I ask them, okay, right now, as like once they'll spill it all out to me, whatever they're going through, I'm like, okay, do you want me, or actually, no, sorry, I ask this before. Do you want me to listen, to just listen, or do you want me to help you work through this? Because
mm,
sometimes, a lot of the times, especially as a teenage girl, you need your mom just to listen, you know? In the mom's heart, and like that's my heart for all these girls I lead too, is like, let me help you. But sometimes they just need to listen first, build that relationship of, I'm so sorry that you're feeling like that. I'm so sorry that your friends are making you feel that way. That is not fun. And let me tell you about my experience. You're not alone. Feeling seen and met and understood and being listened to is such a huge thing. I think that goes along with belonging and that feeling of belonging. Like, oh, I'm not the only person on earth that feels this way. And then inviting in, are you in a place to receive my mentorship now? Can I pour
mm.
into you now? And if they're like, not right now, a lot of the times I had some of my small group girls say, I'm just really overwhelmed and I don't know if I'm even in the place to. And I was like, okay, that is totally fine. Let's talk in a couple days and process this when you're in a better place and pray about it in the meantime. You know, always pushing them back to God. And that's what my mom always did too, is like, Alex, you bring these things to God. Like at the end of the day, you are God's daughter. You're my daughter, but you are his daughter first. And
Mm.
so, you know, bringing those things, feeling seen, feeling loved, and then ultimately pushing to God. And then when that mentorship or that coaching is, if they're in a place to receive that, then go for it. But also, like, a lot of the times some teenage girls may be like, no, I don't want you to ever mentor me, mom, you know? And so for those ones, those are the tricky ones. I would just encourage to keep pressing into the relationship and the opening up of your heart because
Mm.
like intimacy broken up is into you or into me you see.
Mhm, mhm,
So like
mhm.
same thing with moms and daughters. Open your heart up because that's going to make them see you. There's a beautiful balance of you need to be a motherly figure and like a role model and a giving them direction and a rule teacher, you know, but then a friend at the same time. And it's a hard balance. And I have no idea what that balance looks like because I'm not a mom. But I have seen how my mom and I
Yeah.
work on that of like, we're friends, but you're also my mom and you have authority over me and I respect you. But that doesn't mean that you can't be real with me and that you're just perfect and not relatable. So,
Mm.
yeah.
Oh, that's so good. So, I mean, I'm just hearing connect before you correct, connect
Totally.
before you lecture,
'Cause
connect
then they
before
put
you
their
try to give
guards up.
advice.
Yeah.
Yes.
They're like, "No,
And
don't talk to me, mom." And that's what
so good.
it breaks my heart when, like, excuse me, when I see so many girls that have such incredible role models, but like they have such a wall up. And I truly believe it's because maybe in their relationship they don't feel invited or seen. And that's what Jesus did. Like, he saw everyone where they were at in their brokenness,
Mm,
and then he started there. He didn't ask him to do anything. He's just like, let me meet you where you're at. And that is such a beautiful thing to have in a mother-daughter relationship. Like, hey, I am so sorry. This really does suck. And sometimes that's the most comforting thing to hear. What you're going through sucks. But guess
hmm.
what? I'm here and God is here, you know?
So good.
And then that invitation allows you to take those steps forward to growing and overcoming. So,
I love it. Validation.
yep.
Validate the feeling so that they do feel
Yeah.
seen, heard, loved, and
Hmm.
then just, it sounds like empathy. Just
Yeah. Yeah.
sit in the sorrow or the sadness or the
Yep.
stress or whatever it is for a moment. And that will
Yeah.
really help move through and forward. It's so good. It's so good. Okay, then you did say, you mentioned that your mom would often point you back to God. And of course,
Yeah.
I mean, your whole book is the perspective of God that he has on your life. So my last question here is, what did you do as a young woman? I mean, you talk in your book, you talk all the way back to even middle school years, but I know
Yeah.
the sort of the seed planted of writing a book started at 15 and then released at 21. So that you were growing in your faith, you were, like developing a relationship with God, and then being empowered by his Holy Spirit to even do the work that he asked you to do.
Yeah.
So as a young woman, could you share some things that you practically did to grow your faith? Because I know as a mom, that's often my greatest desire, is that my children would have a personal
Hmm.
relationship with the Lord that is not just because of me and my walk. And it's biblical that a kid would grow up and have a salvation that it is theirs, it is personal, and it is intimately connected
Yeah.
between just them and the Father. And so what did you do to develop your faith as a tween and teen into this young adult
Hmm.
life that you're now in? Could you share a few things?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing, I I mean, I praise God for the church community that he put me into. I don't know who I would be or what my life would even look like without it. I met some of my best friends, just built such incredible relationships, but it was not just a easy thing where I walked in and felt comfortable and was good. It took honestly this fight of believing, and I truly believe that whenever you have potential, the enemy will distract you to keep you from reaching it.
Hmm.
And so for me, the very thing I was afraid of, which this literally makes me laugh to this day, and this will for the rest of my life, the very thing I was afraid of as a in junior high at my church, I was starting to get involved. The second I was finally involved was at the very end of eighth grade, and then I had to go to high school, and I was like, well, great, what was all of that for? So I was like, had to meet a new pastor and new friends, and I was opened to like seeing all the seniors, and I'm like, oh my gosh, comparison is going crazy now. And I just remember like absolutely being terrified to walk in on a Sunday. The last thing I would want to do is we would put our names in a bucket
Mm-hmm.
and they'd call out our names, and like we'd have to go up on the stage in front and they'd give us a prize, and then we did this thing called the impossible shot, and you would have to throw a basketball to the back of the room and try to get it in the hoop.
Oh.
my worst nightmare.
Right?
Like, and I say this in my book, but I'm like, I hated the games. Like, were they just trying to make me feel more awkward? Like, I don't want to be there.
Yeah.
They should have like a group at youth groups where it's like the shy kids, like a little shy kid game or something, like not the big crazy ones.
Not the impossible shot.
Not the impossible shot. Don't make me stand up on a stage. But the humor in this is that when I graduated high school, so that was 15, 14-year-old me that was afraid of the impossible shot. When I graduated high school, a part of my job was a weekend director position. So I was in charge of the whole like weekend service and arranging it all, and like I would lead the impossible shot. And I was like calling out kids' names and doing this and that, and I was the one on the stage hyping up the room to get excited about the impossible shot. And I'm like, really, God? Like, I hated that so much. And then it became my job. And then that stage became my best friend, not for my glory, but for God's, where
Yes.
I would give sermons and teach and put on girls' events and lead worship. And the stage is what I resisted. But then that became the place that felt the most at home for me. It felt like where I was fully used. And I'm not saying you have to be on a stage to feel used, but for me, having that opportunity to speak, to hold that microphone, to sing, or to give a sermon, that was like where I felt fully me. And I left that job. I didn't want to, but it was 2 years that I was there. And I left it because I felt God telling me that I need to finish the book and it was time. And I was like, no, why would you take me from that? But now I get to do these podcasts and I get to lead discussions and do events, and I am just getting started. But it's so cool to see how usually the biggest thing you're afraid of has the potential to turn into God's calling for your life. That's usually what happens. And I talked about this in my podcast where I'm doing like 21 mornings of going through different journal prompts in my book and just going through it. And so I talked about this, I think yesterday morning, where I was talking about resistance and like, where are you feeling resistance in your life? For me, I was resisting church, and now looking back on it, like 6 years later, I'm seeing I had so much resistance because the church and my opportunities there in that ministry are what unlocked my passion and my purpose. So it makes sense. So if you're feeling resistance, like I encourage you to pray, God, be wise and use discernment with that resistance, because sometimes there's, bad resistance, and but bring that like to mentors and parental figures, and just kind of explore with God. That's what life is. It's about exploring and seeing, and like you can never say, I'm never gonna do that. Like, never.
Right. Wow, that's so good. Yeah. Yeah, right.
I know,
I
and I
found
was
all the
listening
things,
to your book too, and I
and
was like,
I
oh my gosh,
talk
it's
a
so
lot
similar
about this
too.
in my
It's
book as
crazy.
well, which is so funny. We release
so
books like within
crazy.
2 weeks of each other. Yeah, I know. Yeah, right. Yes.
when we
So, the things that I just was like, but I don't want to do that, are so many of the things that have been the most transformative
Totally.
gifts in my life. And I do think because I think a significant life is a surrendered heart. And so we all want to live a significant life. And the Lord invites us into, okay, then surrender your heart, lean into me and into the process and into the becoming of it all. And it is just really, really powerful to hear you share that. I think young and old alike need to hear, because it moves us out of self-reliance and into God
Can't
dependence.
even imagine what he's
And
doing.
God's path and plan for us,
It does.
it will supersede, it'll exceed any expectation. Yes, it exceeds all expectations. So I love that. And it really, for me, it makes sense that the Lord used his bride, the body of Christ, to shape you, because we were created for connection. We were created for one another. And I find that community is where like real true discipleship actually gets to occur, and where our lives are changed. Iron sharpens iron. And then there's like opportunity to walk out your gifts and your callings and fulfill the purposes that the Lord would have on your life. So I think that's so great. And so I just think this is a perfect segue into talking about what we're doing together. So we do both live in Southern California. We live in San Diego, which people don't understand. San Diego, for people who do not live in San Diego, we are like the largest county in California. So it can take you an hour to an hour and 20 minutes, depending on traffic, to drive from top to tail of our county and still be in San Diego. And so we live about 45 minutes to an hour from each other. But in the central part of San Diego, we are, I'm hosting an event, but I'm really not doing it because it's a girl gathering. Yeah. It's for, I don't even know what is the term these days. I don't know if it's teens. I don't even know, but basically young women, but girls in that season of, high school, early adulthood, that are feeling all of the feels that you have felt, and that we all continue to experience. And so we're inviting these young women into this space, and early Alex is going to share her heart. And we're going to have discussion. I keep saying we. I am not. I am just creating the space because it's actually for the people that matter most to me. My girls will be there. Their friends are coming. And it is open. It is open to really anyone. I mean, I have some friends driving over from Arizona. So, so it's going to be happening on June 24th. It's a Friday evening. We're going to go. You're right. Thank you for that. June 23rd. It's all going to be in the show notes. And it's a Friday night, Friday, June 23rd. And it's happening from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. There's going to be a lot of fun things happening. Of course, a photo booth. I mean, what's any women's event of any age without some form of photo booth? Yeah. And we will be feeding everyone and some different activity, but Alex is going to come and connect with young women to help them flip the script and see themselves how God sees them, and really empower them to fulfill the dream and the call in their life. Yep. And connect in community with other girls, so that we do get the memo. Oh, I'm not alone. I'm not alone. God is with me. And then there's other women and mentors like Alex that can be a voice into my life used by God. So I love it. And I'm looking forward to our time together in June. And I'm just so excited for this to land in the hearts of so many young women and older women alike, middle-aged women, all the women. It's just a message that needs to be heard. So grab the book, send your young woman to the event here in Southern California. And it was great chatting with you. We'll talk soon.